Over the years, in 2K, shooting has changed a lot. From never really knowing if a shot was going in, to guaranteed green lights, all the way to Zens taking over the game and removing the skill completely. Shooting in 2K has seen a lot of changes. So today, we're going year by year, from 2K11 when shooting was simple, all the way to 2K26, to try and see which years actually had the best shooting.
You're asking me if I wish I would have shot the ball more. I'd shoot 2 balls at once if it was allowed, man.
Are you sure about that?
And we're gonna start things off with 2K11. In 2K11, shooting was nothing like what we know today. In today's games, if you don't see that green light flash, you're already sprinting back on defense. Because you know it's probably a brick, and there's usually no in between anymore. You're either perfect or you're useless. And probably having a dude call you trash in game chat.
Why are you passing the big ball?
But go back 15 years, that logic didn't exist. In 2K11, a perfect release wasn't a guaranteed bucket. It was telling you that you did your job. You just gave it the highest probability to go in. The rest, that was up to the 2K gods. And 2K11 had a ton of variety when it came to different shots. They had leaners, spin jumpers, step backs, and even drifters. The shot variety wasn't just a feature, it was a huge part of the game. And every player felt way more unique on the court. Not just a bunch of the same badges and everyone copying the same jump shot. And even the best players had to accept the one thing modern players would probably delete the game over. Sometimes, even when you do everything right, the ball just wouldn't go in. Which brings us to the first real question. Was the shooting in 2K11 actually better, or are we just remembering it that way? And that's going to lead us to 2K12. After 2K11 laid the foundation, 2K12 mostly kept the same shooting system. Perfect timing still didn't guarantee the shot would drop, and the game was still calculating the probability behind the scenes. Meaning you could still have a perfectly timed jumper, see great feedback, and still watch the ball rim out. But the biggest change, that actually came from the players. That's because certain players now had abilities which made them more effective when they took certain types of shots, which definitely helped separate the great shooters from everyone else. So while the core shooting system stayed almost identical to 2K11, the players themselves started becoming way more unique. And next up, we have 2K13. In 2K13, the shooting system didn't change much, but the way offense was played definitely did. You still had the release feedback showing how good your timing was. And just like the earlier games, the feedback again didn't guarantee the shot. The game was still calculating whether it actually went in. But this year, the game started explaining shots a lot better. Instead of just showing shot timing, the feedback would now break down what actually happened on that shot. Things like defensive pressure and shot selection were now part of what the game showed you. So instead of completely guessing why you missed, the game at least explained it better. But if you actually played that year, one thing you probably remember, especially when it comes to shooting, is that Eurostep 3 glitch. That's where you trigger the Eurostep animation, pull up into a one-leg jumper, and for whatever reason, that shot went in almost every time. And the worst part, for some reason, that shot required no timing. And once people learned it and started to abuse it, for the most part, the move took over the game. And if you were running Acrobat, that's where it got even cheesier, simply because it made the shot even more effective. And that leads us to the other big change in 2K13. This was the first year 2K introduced signature skills, which was an expansion on the abilities that they had in 2K12. And ones like Deadeye even helped how much a defender could actually contest your shot. So if you were in the right spot or taking the right type of shot, those skills could give you a real advantage. So the core shooting system itself didn't really change, but between signature skills and the Eurostep 3 glitch, the way offense was actually played made 2K13's shooting feel completely different. Next up, we have 2K14. In 2K14, shooting didn't completely change. And obviously, the first thing everyone notices in this game is the graphics. This was the first year that the game jumped to next gen, and visually, it was a massive leap. But when it came to shooting, the biggest changes were actually how the game showed you your shot. When you took a jumper in 2K14, you'd see the shot feedback pop up in the right corner. So after 3 years of damn near the same shot meter, we now had a bar just telling us if we got an excellent release or not. But people also started to rely on the visual cue under their feet. Because right when the circle flashed blue, that was the exact moment that you needed to release the shot in order for it to be excellent. And another thing players started noticing this year, that was the jump shots themselves, because more players started getting their actual shooting motions. So guys like Kevin Durant, Kobe, or even LeBron actually shot the ball the way that they did in real life, which once again made certain players feel even more unique, something that up to this point they've done a good job on. 2K14 didn't drastically change how shooting worked, but between the shot feedback in the corner and the blue release cue under your feet, players finally had a clear visual on how to get a perfect release, something that would go on to shape how shooting worked for every game going forward. Then of course, we have 2K15. When we get to 2K15, this is where shooting really started to change, because this year, the green release that we now know today finally became a thing. If you timed your jumper perfectly and the meter flashed green, the shot was going in. And if you mistimed it and got a white release, this year a lot lot of those were going in too. But now, outside of a random glitch, if you got a green, you already knew the result. The shot meter itself sat right under your player's feet, and inside the bar was a small release line. And the goal was simple. Let go as the meter hit that line, hit it perfectly, and you got a green release. So if you knew your jump shot, you can now take over a whole game. And for the first time, shooting created a bigger skill gap than the game had ever seen before. But the timing of your jump shot wasn't the same for every single mode. So a lot of people actually ran different jump shots for park and rec, because the online timing between the modes wasn't exactly the same. So people would just switch releases just to keep their timing more consistent. 2K15 gave us the green releases that we now know in today's games and created a skill gap that would eventually come back to hurt them. And that brings us to a lot of people's favorite, 2K16. In 2K16, the green release era stayed, but consistently seeing that green became a lot harder.
Green releases in NBA 2K16 are much more rare, and they will no longer be 100%.
So even though shooting may have looked the same, it felt completely different. The shot meter itself stayed the exact same, and you still had to release the shot right on that line inside the meter. Miss it slightly, you were probably seeing a white, but this year they weren't going in as much. Another thing people remember about this era was the jump shots themselves. The jump shot creator wasn't around yet, so many players would just have certain jumpers that they rotated, depending on if they were making their shots or not. And if you played 2K16, you most definitely remember LaMarcus Aldridge having damn near the wettest shot in the game. And if you didn't use his jump shot, you had plenty of numbered jump shots to use as well. So variety was there again, and everyone had their favorites. Overall, 2K16 kept the green release system that was introduced the year before, but also made shooting feel way more balanced. And that's why a lot of people feel like shooting in 2K16 was the perfect balance. And that leads us into 2K17. In 2K17, 2K started experimenting with shooting in ways that we've never seen before. And this is where the shot meter itself started to change. In the previous games, as we mentioned, the goal was to release the shot on the line in the middle of the meter. But in 2K17, that changed. Instead of trying to hit a specific line, players were now trying to fill the meter all the way up for a perfect release. And depending on where you were shooting from, the meter itself could actually change size. So shots taken further from your range could shrink the meter, while shots inside your comfort zone made the meter a lot bigger. But the biggest addition to shooting had nothing to do with the meter. That's because they introduced the jump shot creator. So instead of being locked into one animation, you could now mix different bases, releases, and even change the speed, giving every jump shot way more variety. And once a jumper started catching on and becoming popular, you'd suddenly start seeing that same release everywhere. 2K17 pushed shooting in a new direction. The shot meter was completely different, and the jump shot creator gave players more freedom than ever before. But whether that actually made shooting better, that's where things start to get debatable. When shooting changed again, 2K18. In 2K18, the shot meter changed again, and so did the way players understood their shots. It moved from under your player's feet to a vertical bar right next to your player's head, and this was them trying to make it a lot easier to see while you were actually taking the shot. But the real change, that was happening in the corner of the screen, because 2K started giving us more feedback. After every shot, the game would tell you exactly how contested you were, just like they did in the earlier games. But this also created a new problem, and that was the good release. In 2K18, a good release was basically a guaranteed miss. You'd fill the meter perfectly, see the word good in the corner, and you knew the ball was clanking off the rim. And between this and the unreliable servers in 2K18, shooting damn near became a nightmare. Even though they moved the shot meter next to your player and also expanded the shot feedback, the servers and other issues with the game this year kind of held shooting back. Next up, we have 2K19. In 2K19, at first, shooting looked very similar to the year before, but for the first time, players could actually customize where that meter appeared. You could move it next to your hands, under your feet, or have it show both. And if you were sick of shot meters altogether, you could even turn it off. So instead of everyone being forced into the same exact meter, players could finally set up the game however they felt most comfortable timing their release. But the bigger story in 2K19, it was the introduction of the takeover, simply because this changed the logic of every single game. If you were a sharpshooter and you got hot, you could trigger your takeover. Then suddenly, your ratings jumped, your range extended, and now you can make a lot more unrealistic shots. And it wasn't just sharpshooters, it was every build. 2K19 didn't completely change the shooting system, but it gave players more control over how they time their shots. Between the customizable meter and the new takeover system, 2K19 was a game where a good jumper and the right takeover could completely change how dangerous a shooter was. And that brings us to 2K20. In 2K20, this is where 2K changed how jump shot speed actually worked. In the previous games, release speed was built directly into the animation, but in 2K20, that control moved into a badge. That's because 2K introduced Quick Draw, a shooting badge that determined how fast your jump shot actually released. If you didn't have it on Gold or Hall of Fame, your shot was slow and easy to contest. So now, you didn't just need badges to make the shots, you needed them just to get the shot off. But 2K also introduced another massive change, because they told players that turning the shot meter off would actually give you a boost to your shot timing, which essentially gave you a bigger green window. So a lot of the best shooters stopped using the meter entirely, and instead of watching a bar or a meter, they were timing the animation itself. So overall, 2K20 tied shot speed to the quick draw badge and gave an incentive to players who didn't need the meter, something that is still a huge part of today's games. And then 2K moved over to next-gen consoles with 2K21. In 2K21, this is where 2K tried something completely different when it came to shooting. The year before, jump shot speed was controlled by the quick draw badge, but now that badge was gone, and release speed went back to being built directly into the jump shot itself. And on top of that, 2K introduced an entirely new shot meter. Instead of the vertical bar from previous games, 2K21 used a curved meter that sat right above your player's head. But the biggest change was shot aiming. Instead of just timing your jumper, you could now aim the shot using the right stick. And if you aimed it correctly, you'd get a boost to the shot. This was 2K trying to add a skill gap, but for most people, it felt awkward and hard to even use. And it also created another huge issue. That's because it opened the door for Zens, and they started showing up way more. And suddenly, if someone had one, a lot of the skill that shooting was supposed to require just disappeared. And if you were playing on next gen, they introduced a new badge called Sniper, which gave you another incentive to try and aim your shot, simply because it gave a boost when you aimed the shot correctly. So 2K21 removed quick draw and tried to add more of a skill gap with shot aiming, but instead it created a problem that still affects the game today. And next up, we have 2K22. In 2K22, shooting moved back to something much more familiar. After they tried shot aiming the year before, the game went right back to traditional shot timing, and they also introduced a brand new shot meter. They moved it back to next to your player, except now there was a line at the top of the release, so you knew exactly where you had to time it in order to get a green. But the real story this year wasn't the mechanics. It was a badge that we already saw before, and that was Sniper, the badge we just talked about in 2K21, and it was way more cheese. Instead of helping with shot aiming, it now made mistimed shots go in a lot more, and all of a sudden, white releases started dropping constantly. Some players loved it because they felt shooting was way more forgiving, but most people hated it because it felt like they removed the skill gap altogether, because now perfect timing wasn't always required anymore. So overall, 2K22 returned to the traditional shot timing, but the Sniper badge made shooting far more forgiving than the last couple years. And that brings us into 2K23. In 2K23, things suddenly went in the opposite direction. After the forgiving shooting of the year before, 2K tightened things up, and Sniper was finally gone. And at the same time, 2K pushed the game more towards green or miss, and players felt the difference immediately, simply because shooting in 2K23 was much harder. White releases that were falling the year before were suddenly bricking. For some players, that's exactly what they wanted because they felt like the game finally rewarded perfect timing again and re-established the skill gap. But for others, it felt like shooting had become too unforgiving and just not consistent. So overall, 2K23 tightened shooting back up and pushing the game towards a green or miss type system, but it also showed that no matter how they made the shooting, some part of the community was never happy, which really makes you wonder, is it possible for 2K to make shooting good, or is somebody always going to be unhappy? Next up, we have 2K24. In 2K24, the green or miss system didn't change, but the way we timed our jumpers definitely did. That's because 2K introduced the brand new visual cue system. Instead of everyone releasing their shot at the same exact point, players could now choose which part of the animation they wanted to time. And this year, you had a whole bunch of different meters to choose from. But once again, the most popular was definitely just turning it off completely. And for the first time, 2K added a new grade in the jump shot creator, and that was shot timing stability. This stability determined how much of your shot speed fluctuated based on stamina or the contest, meaning the higher the grade, the more consistent your animation stayed. 2K24 kept the strict shooting from the year before, but shifted the focus toward mastering a visual cue rather than just learning the meter. And that brings us to 2K25. In 2K25, 2K tried to completely reinvent the way players actually shot the ball. They did that by introducing rhythm shooting. You pull the pro stick down to start the jump, and then flick it up to match the tempo of your player's release. And by mastering that up and down flick, you get a massive boost to your green window. But that new rhythm system also opened the door for more Zens, because rhythm shooting relies on a very specific tempo, and some players started finding scripts to automate that motion perfectly every single time. But 2K did at least give us a visual cue slider, letting you move your release point to the exact frame you wanted. 2K25 tried to add something new with rhythm shooting. Instead, it damn near broke broke shooting completely, which is partly why some people call it one of the worst 2Ks ever made. And to end the video off, we have 2K26. When it comes to 2K26, this is definitely one of the easiest shooting years we've ever had. Rhythm shooting remained an option, but early in the year, 7-4 builds were getting away with shots that should have been heavily contested. I'm talking 4 people in the dude's face, and he still somehow has an open green. And we can't forget about the fading threes that were basically a green every time, and damn near impossible to contest. But luckily, those got patched. But one thing that didn't get completely patched, that was the Zens. And it's not an exaggeration to say that they ruined the game. Because when you have something that times every single shot perfectly for you, the entire skill gap around shooting just disappears. And last week they had a huge update, which for the most part patched Zens, but they are very much still out there, and many players are already done with 2K this year. 2K26 became one of the easiest years to score, and although the year had plenty of potential, it'll always be known as a mid-year of 2K simply because Zens and cheating got way too out of control. And that's every game over the last decade. From 2K11, where it was simple and fun, to 2K26, where Zens time your shot for you. Now, most importantly, what year do you think shooting was the best? Let me know in the comments down below, and let me know what you would want to see next. But that's all for me. I hope you have a great day, and remember, stay saucy.
Ever since I can remember, I've been popping my collar,